Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Now, I read an article the other day that said Minecraft's official system requirements were getting updated after 17 years. I actually built a PC that centered around the recommended specs nearly 7 years ago, and safe to say the game ran really well on what was a quad-core i5 and 2GB Radeon graphics card. If we take a look at Minecraft.net, then we can see all the details about why these changes are happening and what new hardware is suggested. To summarise, these changes are happening to give players a better idea of how the game will run on modern systems, as well as paving the way for future game updates, including its transition to Vulkan. The new requirements are broken down into both a minimum and recommended section, the former targeting 1080p 30fps with the fast preset, and the latter 1080p 60fps with the fancy options. You might be surprised by what's listed. Under the minimum tab we have a quad-core i3-10100 or Ryzen 3100, as well as a 2GB GTX 950 or RX 460. The Intel Arc A310 is also listed here, and so is the integrated graphics inside a Core i5 6400, which is far weaker than all the discrete graphics cards. The recommended section is far more demanding, with a 6-core i5-12400 or Ryzen 5600 listed alongside 16GB of RAM and an RTX 2060, RX 5600 XT from AMD or Intel's Arc A580. I actually have a 12400, the F version, which is basically the same thing, just without integrated graphics. I also have a 6GB RTX 2060, so let's jump into the game and see what we can expect. If your PC doesn't meet these suggested requirements, then don't worry at the moment, because at the time of upload, these components are super overkill. I generated an amplified world type which adds loads of vertical blocks everywhere, and even then, with the fancy preset as stated, we're getting hundreds of FPS with the default OpenGL renderer. This is at 1080p of course. We can switch to Vulkan manually from the graphics menu if we want to, and this seemed to massively improve the smoothness and consistency of the game, as well as offering much higher frame rates. I guess this is why a Vulkan 1.3 supported GPU is worth it, although results will differ depending on hardware and the world that you generate. Whenever the next major overhaul comes along and potentially turns Minecraft into a far more demanding title, I'll make a video about it using these same specs, but for now, if your PC is equal to this or better, you have nothing to worry about. I'm sure the minimum specs will probably offer a much higher frame rate than is stated right now too. Even at 2160p or 4K, our i5-12400 and RTX 2060 combo can deliver excellent performance, especially with Vulkan enabled. At this resolution, the graphics card is being utilised a lot more, as I'd expect, but it will be interesting to see how performance changes over time. Hopefully Minecraft Java doesn't become too demanding. Can you imagine if an RTX card fails to hit 60 FPS in a future version of Minecraft? That would be quite surprising, but it would be more disappointing than anything. We will revisit this one day, when Minecraft gets a significant visual upgrade that pushes this hardware harder, but in the meantime, let's take a quick look at what else this combo can do, because it's actually not too bad as far as CPU and GPU pairings go. You're probably not building a PC just for one game either, though I'm not judging you if you are. Still, let's give a few other titles a quick go. The i5-12400F is still pretty capable. I mean, I feature it a lot on this channel and it's still my favourite reasonably priced 6-core CPU, even years after launch, and despite the price of it constantly going up, but that just seems to be the case with everything right now. The 2060 on the other hand is Nvidia's weakest first generation RTX graphics card, and with 6GB of VRAM you may encounter some issues in 2026 and beyond. But to be honest, it still does a respectable job at 1080p in a lot of games, if you don't push the settings too high, and it can even handle at least 60 FPS while doing so. We'll kick things off with Battlefield 6 then, 1080p at the lowest settings with TAA. I'm playing the Eastwood map here with nothing else changed. We're seeing 95 frames per second with a 1% low of 67 and a 0.1% low of 62. This was quite a surprising result and I was expecting a lot worse from the 2060. We could probably push things to the medium preset if we wanted to, but it's important to be aware of that VRAM limitation, and pushing things higher may start to incur a few little dips and stutters, especially in those more demanding maps and with a lot of other players on screen. Counter-Strike 2 up next, 1080p with a high preset and MSAA off, although it runs just fine with MSAA switched on and set to its default 4x setting with this preset enabled. Here we were getting 179 frames per second with a 1% low of 86 and a 0.1% low of 59, so it wasn't perfect, but it's certainly not difficult to achieve at least 60 or 120 FPS with hardware like this, and I'd probably suggest turning things down a little lower if you want to maximise the frame rate, something that's quite important with a fast-paced online shooter like this. GTA 5 Enhanced up next, which of course introduces some ray tracing options. I went with the high RT preset here with RTGI or Ray Traced Global Illumination set to high, as well as TAA. Now FSR 3 native or DLSS native is going to offer a sharper experience, and because of the frame rate here we may even be able to enable it without sacrificing our plus 60 FPS average. That said, I played it a little safe, kept things here with TAA, and we were seeing 98 frames per second overall. This also meant that all of our percentile lows stuck to at least 60 frames per second. We're looking at 78 as that 1% low and 66 as that 0.1% figure. For Palworld, 1080p, medium preset here, a few dips and drops as I've seen with a lot of other hardware. I am running it in DX12 mode, so it may be worth either trying both depending on your hardware and seeing which offers a better experience. With DX12, we're seeing 104 FPS, though our percentile lows do suffer a little bit. We're looking at 63, which is fine, and then a pretty poor 24 FPS as that 0.1% number, and you can probably pick up the dips and drops in this footage. Maybe we would have been better off with low, but medium is going to deliver more than 60 FPS by quite some margin. Cyberpunk 2077 up next at 1080p with medium. This is the medium preset with medium crowds. I'd recommend the medium crowds at most for something like the i5-12400F, a 6-core 12-thread CPU that will start to struggle a little bit more with the high crowds preset. Overall, we were getting 80 frames per second, an average that was better than I was anticipating, to be honest, with a 1% low of 58 and a 0.1% low of 49. So the average was good and the consistency was there as well. This game ran very smoothly, and overall pretty happy with how this one performs in and around Night City especially. We'll finalise with Forza Horizon 6, probably the newest title out of today's tested games, which at the medium preset once again with TAA hit 72 FPS overall. The 1% low was 60 and the 0.1% low was 54. We do see some dips and drops to the low 60s in Tokyo City, but our frame rate remained above that pretty much all of the time, even when taking part in races with NPCs on screen as well. So a pretty solid experience for our i5 and 2060 rig. Our Minecraft recommended requirements PC build, that is. But there we go. Let me know what you think about the changes to the Minecraft specs down below, as well as how the game currently runs for you on your hardware. There is also the Bedrock Edition available for lower end specs. We will have to revisit it again, especially if there is a significant performance or visual overhaul at some point. But thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed it, leave a like down below, leave a comment of course, subscribe to the channel if you want to already and you haven't done so yet, and hopefully I'll see all of you in the next one.